Welcome back to the Kyber Collective. I'm one of your three hosts, Flowers, and I'm joined by Sig.
Hello.
And Annie.
Hey.
Today we're tackling The Force Awakens. This is a long time coming. we spent a lot of time on the prequels and the originals, and finally we've reached this era that has caused a lot of hoopla across the Star Wars fandom. The Force Awakens was the first property to come out live action that was a movie and heralded a new era for Star Wars. Some people don't like this era of Star Wars. I think it's safe to say if you've listened to any of our prior podcasts, any of our prior episodes, it's been kind of clear that this isn't our favorite trilogy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's not our favorite.
There's things that we like about it, of course. There's some things that are memorable, but overall, we have some things to say, but we're going to keep things hopefully objective here and just get right into it. So I thought we can start with just a little background before I dive into any questions. So when this movie was coming out, the hype around it was pretty insane. Because I remember seeing the news articles drop, like, one, Disney acquires Lucasfilm, and then you're hearing J.J. Abrams has signed on to be director and co-writer, which filled me with doubt because he was doing the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
And I think I think it was the last one that he did was when the announcement went up that he was doing The Force Awakens. I had some concerns, but they seemed to make it feel like it was going to be all right and that it's in good hands and that George had given some blessing that might have changed now.
I think he's rescinded his blessings.
Yeah, he hard rescinded that blessing.
Yeah.
What did he call them?
White slavers.
White slavers, yeah.
That's pretty strong words. I don't think I'd have gone quite that far, but I think it's pretty clear how he feels.
Yeah, he was not pleased, to say the least.
Yeah.
And then the first trailer dropped, and I remember when that trailer dropped, it was really exciting. I read that within 24 hours, the trailer got like 88 million views. Yeah. It was record-breaking, and no one had... I read this thing that Kathleen Kennedy was like, it felt like being at a rock star concert when they showed this trailer in front of like a live audience, and just people lost their minds. People were really excited about it. And so the hype was starting. And, you know, I remember seeing like John Boyega as like the first person you see in this trailer. When he's in that, he takes off the Stormtrooper helmet. Yeah, he was like a big front man for the franchise at the time. And then the movie came out, and I guess let's just get into, when did you watch The Force Awakens, and what was your first impression? And has that changed now?
I went into it trying to stay away from any of the articles.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know as little about it as possible, because I remember I had just seen one of the Marvel movies, and I kept up with all of the trailers. I think it was Ultron, maybe. And I felt like I was completely spoiled by all of the trailers and all of the speculation. So I consciously stayed away from Star Wars media. There are two things I remember, and one of them is John Boyega taking his helmet off, and the second was the cross guard.
Yeah,
the red.
Those are two. Yeah,
and those are two very powerful images, and that was enough, really, for me. I went to the midnight showing. I loved it, honestly, after I first saw it, because I didn't know anything going in, like, at all. I was completely surprised by everything, basically. I didn't even know who was going to be under the Kylo Ren helmet.
Yeah, they kept that under wraps, I think.
Yeah, I was really disappointed, honestly. Okay, and here's why. Yeah. I have come to really love Adam Driver, his acting and everything like that. And he's a great actor, because at the time, Girls was really at its height. And I hated him on that show. I hated him so much.
Yeah.
And I think that was because he's such a good actor. But yeah, when he took that helmet off, I was like, this guy? Like, ugh. I mean, it's nothing against him. Like, I remember, like, there was a lot of people like making fun of him, like saying this guy is gonna be the son of Han and Leia, like he looks nothing like them, and I'm just like, I don't know, I think he did a pretty good job. He looks like Harrison Ford.
He also kind of doesn't need to. I mean, like, it's, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think based on performance, I think he played the part he was supposed to play pretty well. I
Yeah.
remember seeing that comment and pretty ugly comments about,
Yeah.
him.
There was some real unpleasant stuff said about him
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the time.
And I remember the unpleasant things said about John Boyega, like
Yes.
Yeah.
about the
distinctly.
clones,
Yeah.
about how it couldn't have been him, and I'm like, you guys realize that they hadn't been using clones for a while?
Yeah.
That felt very obvious to me, that I was actually pretty surprised that that conversation point had been coming up at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But I really loved it after I first saw it. I thought that it had the potential to go in some cool places. I got caught up in the whole thing, like, who's Rey related to? You know, is she a Kenobi? Is she this or that? I really liked her with Finn. I thought they were going in the romance direction there. I thought that was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was so wrong.
We all were.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I was. I mean, I don't think I loved it as much as Empire Strikes Back or like A New Hope or whatever, but like I remember being pretty hopeful about it.
Yeah. I think we all sort of did feel that spark of this could be something.
Yeah.
I mostly felt confusion. I was so confused in this movie, and I was like, a friend went with me who'd actually like seen Star Wars and really liked Star Wars, and I must have been the most annoying person. I was like someone's mom in the movie the whole time. I was like, who's that? What's happening? Who are these guys? I was so confused because I like sort of knew the plot of Star Wars, and I was like, doesn't the Empire end at the end? Why are they back? Who are these people? What happened? Why are the rebels back? Are they working with the Republic? I'm so confused. And I was like trying to figure out the politics of this film in the theater, being exceptionally annoying, and I could not make heads or tails of it. And in my defense, my friend could not answer these questions because the answers are not in the film.
Yeah, they're really hard to answer.
And like, but I was like, I was like grilling him on like what was the end of like Return of the Jedi, because I was like, what happened at the end of this? Because why is there like another empire, and like what is happening? So I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't figure out who any of the people were. For a long time, I thought Rey was definitely Luke's kid, because I was like, well, she's on a desert planet. He's from a desert planet, I think. Is this his kid? I was really confused. That said, though, I had a really good time. It was like a really fun action fic. It didn't make any sense, but I enjoyed pointing my face at it. And that's how I felt about The Force Awakens. There's so much stuff in this film. Like, I feel very differently about it now, like at least knowing kind of the backstory, and I definitely know what happens at Return of the Jedi. Yeah. But like, there's a bit where like Kylo Ren takes his helmet off and he just puts it in a bowl of ashes. And I remember being in the theater and being like, what? Why does he put it in the ashtray? Why? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Because it looks cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, and like, just nothing about the film made any sense at all to me. And there's so much stuff. I was sitting there like, because like Kylo Ren can read minds, but then he's taken people back to the ship. So like, does he have to read minds at a special place? Because it really would be more efficient to read them like elsewhere, like on the surface of the planet.
Yeah.
I was very confused about the kidnapped children stormtroopers, because that's not what I thought the stormtroopers were. But it turns out that was also like, to be honest, I'm not sure it would have made a difference if I'd actually watched the other Star Wars films before seeing this.
No, it's interesting because you asked all those questions, and I think those are questions we all had. Like, what's the First Order? Why is there resistance? Like, I had these questions, like, even just a few years ago. I was like, what happened? Like,
I completely harshed my friend's groove, because I think he was like vibing and he was excited about it, and he was like, yeah, it's a new Star Wars movie, and me sitting there like someone's grandma being like, who's that? What's he doing? Like, I think just ruined the film for him.
Aw.
So
You
I feel bad about that.
you forced your friend to face reality sooner than he wanted to.
I think so. I think you could kind of overlook some of it if you just like enjoyed the hype, and I wish I could have ridden the hype train because I think
Yeah,
it is a fun movie.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it the first time I watched it.
I think that's very fair. So, my first experience, I had gone to the theater opening day. We had reserved tickets. We got the biggest theater ever we could possibly get our hands on. My whole family went. I put on like my Star Wars sweater. And I just remember going to get my seat. And like there was this really old man sitting next to me with his like original trilogy like t-shirt on. And he was like, I don't know. He just looked at my sweater. He's like, "You like Star Wars? Right on." And I just remember him saying that to me. He was just so pleased. It was really cool because the whole theater was not just, it was just packed with all sorts of people. It was people who were elderly. It was people who were younger. It was kids. It was just every single type of person you can think of. They were all excited to see this. And I remember enjoying it in the theater. And they had so much nostalgia in this movie, calling back to A New Hope. A lot of little nods for the fans, I think, things that Han Solo did sometimes, like shooting the blast door and it just opens, and a lot of fun stuff like that. I remember enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember enjoying it for a while. It was really exciting to have a new Star Wars era show up, and it was really exciting that we got to see Rey. I thought it was a really great decision to have her as the central character. I thought everybody was really enjoyable. I had a similar reaction to when Kylo Ren showed up and he took off his helmet. I was just like, "Oh, this guy."
Yeah, I know. It didn't have anything to do with his looks. I was just like,
No.
oh god, it's that guy from Girls.
Yeah, I was just like, "Oh God, put the helmet back on!" Like, I don't want
Yeah.
you part of this. um, but he did do a good job as the antagonist, and I remember just really having fun, and I remember having fun watching it on my rewatches once it came out on DVD or on TV. But I feel like that impression has changed a little. I still think it's still an enjoyable movie to watch. Like I
Mm-hmm.
rewatched it in preparation for this, and I had a lot of fun. Like there were so much good great moments. There was good humor.
Yeah.
There are things obviously that I think don't work, and I don't think they worked back then either. But you're more forgiving, I think, of things when you feel like there's a promise being made on what's to
Mm-hmm.
come,
Yeah.
and when those promises don't happen at all, when everything falls through, I think your excitement for things that you were excited about before just start, you look at it in a different way.
Yeah, I remember being concerned is the wrong word, but I remember being I was kind of like, oh god, I hope, because I knew how J.J. Abrams wrote his stuff,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and like I know that George kind of did it. What like a lot of his big things were either like who the another was from Empire Strikes Back. He like
yeah,
made that up as he went along, but. George is also a far superior writer, quite honestly.
yeah,
And JJ was, I don't know. I liked Star Trek. I know that's like fighting words to Star Trek fans, but like I had never seen any Star Trek, so I think it was fine because I didn't know anything about Star Trek.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was fine. Lost just annoyed the hell out of me after a
Oh
while.
my God, yeah.
So I was just like, what else did he do? Did he do
I just distinctly remember him from Lost and watching that show go down the way it did and being like, "Oh, that's not good."
yeah, yeah. Did he do Alias? Was that
I
him?
was thinking maybe he did Alien, but I can't remember off the top of my head if he was involved in that.
Yeah, it's like they all had these amazing first seasons, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then after the second season, you're just like, I can't, I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah, it says that he created Alias and
Oh
was
yeah.
definitely a big part of it. It was also by Bad Robot Productions that he is notorious for using. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because once this movie was out for quite some time, and things were percolating up until they were making the next movie, the public opinion on The Force Awakens changed because it much like my reaction and Annie's reaction, even Sig's, everyone enjoyed it at first. I think that the nostalgia really gets to you, but over time there was quite a backlash that was starting to happen. Some people were calling it like the worst Star Wars movie of all time.
They hadn't seen anything yet.
They had they didn't know what they were saying yet.
Yeah. The Rise of Skywalker was like, hold my beer.
I know. And some of the criticisms I think were outlandish. I think some of them don't deserve a space in Star Wars or in any fandom space. But some of them, I agreed with. It felt like there's no real premise that you're going off of, and some decisions that this movie made people didn't like. They didn't like that Luke showed up at the end and had no lines. They didn't like that Han Solo was killed off. Some people defended it, but I think people were upset about. A lot of people didn't like that decision. And it's hard to look at this as just its own movie, because you kind of have to, with hindsight, I've seen what happens to it.
Yeah.
But strictly on like a singular movie sense, like I think there are some things that it did right. Like I think the casting that they did, phenomenal. Like I think they discovered some pretty incredible actors. Like Oscar Isaac is incredible. John Boyega is incredible.
I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Upon rewatch, I really noticed the cinematography that they did in this film. I noticed the sets and color and editing and the use of color. It felt very much like how George tends to use color in his storytelling, and I appreciated that.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that I like about J.J. Abrams as a director. I cannot stand the man as a writer.
Yeah.
But I enjoy his direction, and I think that's why, like, Annie, you said you loved the Star Trek films. I think if I hadn't known, like, I grew up with Star Trek, so I clued in immediately that this was kind of hollow, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think I feel a similar way about The Force Awakens, is that it is a lot of nostalgia, but there's no depth to it. It's like my questions that I asked when I first saw the film, like, how did this political situation come about? Who are these people? Are just not really answered. And that's like the foundation of a good story. But as a director, I mean, I know people mock his lens flares, but like those action sequences, like when the Falcon goes upside down and like they're piloting it, that like whole sequence is so cool. That sequence of Rey alone in the desert at the beginning is excellent. Like you said, like the use of color, we go from a sandy planet to the inside of the Falcon to this green kind of paradise. Like there are things that he does incredibly well. And I have yet to sit through one of his movies and not enjoy pointing my face at it. It's when I start thinking about what I'm seeing that I run into a problem.
Yeah.
But I can't fault people for liking J.J. Abrams' stuff, because it is hugely enjoyable. And I think as a director, he's got a really good eye for that kind of thing. And I can see why he gets jobs. I just, finishing stuff off and writing a deep story is maybe, in my opinion, not his forte.
I think everything's great on the surface.
Yes.
He's great with the visuals. That Falcon chase scene when they were getting off of Jakku, that's probably one of my favorites in the whole.
Yeah.
Because it actually kept my attention. It's really hard to keep my attention in that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun, like with Finn getting back in that swinging chair, It was cool, but he doesn't know how to finish things.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to go very deep. I would say that I really liked his first Star Trek movie. The second one, I don't know.
The second one, we won't get into this.
We don't need it.
I'm like, this is not the place.
That's a whole other.
We don't get in there because I have words too, and I can't share them.
But I like, and I think that there's a kind of quippiness to his dialogue. Like there's a lot to like. I think maybe some co-writers, or there's something missing that would really round out his storytelling. And as well with George Lucas, there are moments that I wish maybe he'd had a co-writer to smooth out some of the dialogue. No one is good at all things, but like the kind of, it's almost like a Whedon-esque like quippiness, like that. It's most obvious in the scene between Finn and Poe when they first meet and they're crash landing on the planet, and they have like instant chemistry, and it's fun and it's fast paced and it moves really well, and like the humor in this movie does land really really well, and even the physical humor of like BB-8 great. And I think he's got a good sense of that. It's just, yeah, the world building for me.
Was lacking.
I really struggle, and like you said, I mean, we'll talk later about the Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker, but as a setup to a trilogy, this movie fails, in my opinion. It is a very poor foundation for a subsequent trilogy, and as a writer, that I mean, that was kind of the principal point he should have been aiming for, is a good standalone movie, but a good foundation for a new trilogy, and I think that's where it falls apart.
And something that he has said is, I was signed on for one film.
Yeah.
This was meant to do setup. And I think you can see the potential. You see potential in this movie. This movie has great potential given what, the story we know ends up happening. But I think the setup for a trilogy, he possibly didn't understand what he needed or what was required to set up a trilogy. But, like Annie said, George Lucas didn't exactly have the same minutia, the same amount of planning, but I think there was still cohesiveness in how things rounded out in the prior trilogies that I think there, like you said, there's a hollowness in it. And what's fascinating is the people who co-wrote with him was the prior
Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan, and he worked on Empire Strikes Back, he worked on Return of the Jedi, later worked on Solo. Original, he had some solid people. The original script was written by Michael Arndt, but that still didn't round it out. And it's unfortunate because there's stuff that they cherry picked ideas and scenes from George Lucas's vision for what the sequels would look like. And I just remember reading George Lucas talking about this and saying that they kind of took bits and disregarded the actual meat of the story and just kept scenes and moments. And if you work on it like that, if you're not brave enough to take the actual foundation of the story forward, which is one of the gripes that I'm going to talk about in the next segment, I think you have a weaker story.
There was a really interesting interview that J.J. Abrams gave where he talked about the process for writing The Force Awakens, and he basically said they had him who was somebody who liked Star Wars but thought, I can't remember how he phrased it, but he wanted to make it more kind of mass appeal and less philosophy, I think. I hope I'm summarizing accurately what he said. And there were a couple other people who were kind of coming from similar or even no Star Wars background, and then you had people coming from Star Wars background that goes all the way back to the original trilogy. And he said they would present an idea, and until every single person at the table was happy with it, it didn't stay in the script, which in principle I think is a really good collaborative approach. But in practice, I think results in a lowest common denominator form of storytelling, where things that might have been very good either way wound up being cut out to please everyone, and then you get kind of
generic.
The lukewarm film that we got, which is a perfectly fun film, but I would characterize it maybe as unambitious.
Strong but correct words, I think.
But like I actually, when I read that interview, I had a lot more sympathy than I'd had for him previously, because I just thought, I actually think that's in theory a really great way to work. It seems very collaborative, but like it seems also like maybe you shot yourself in the foot a little bit.
Yeah. Unambitious is fair.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he even like just kind of went along with the plot of A New Hope.
Yeah, because when you get to that point, you lose any strong voices. And something that the prior movies really excelled on was having something to say, and having, like, even if it wasn't well received by people that George Lucas was working with, or even, I guess, audiences, at least it had moments and had a purpose. And I feel like if you're pleasing your whole writer's room, I feel like you're limiting yourself.
Maybe, yeah.
There's stuff that I think it did right, which we covered, but then there's also stuff that I think it did wrong. And one of the things that I think it really shot itself in the foot is that the politics made no sense. Each Star Wars trilogy had something going on politically. It had some goal to go toward. I think the original trilogy was possibly the more basic principle. Empire bad, rebels good. How do we overthrow this? And then the prequels were Republic good, external factors bad, Chancellor elected, foils by the democratic process and by people's whims and prejudices are what brought a
Yeah.
democracy down.
It's a slow slide into fascism and then the overturning of fascism.
Yeah. Great summary. I would be just rambling on a long time. And I tried figuring out exactly how things operated in The Force Awakens. I think on a very broad spectrum, it does make sense. There's this first order, which
Mhm.
is like a rehash of the Empire down to like the people, stormtroopers and Imperial workmen and the ships that are used, who are trying to find Luke Skywalker. And you have the Resistance, which is a Republic backed
Is
little.
it though?
That's what this opening crawl said.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The
Yeah.
Resistance is backed by the Republic and led by General Organa. Now, okay, yeah, you have a confused look on your face. I do too.
I'm having flashbacks to the first time I saw this film.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Honestly, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like the
No,
Republic shouldn't need to have
Separate
like
force.
a resistance.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
which are like rebel fighters, basically. But if
Yeah.
you're backed
right.
by your government, you don't need that. What you need is a military to stop this like terrorist group.
I mean, it's not clear, like, because everything seems to be happening within Republic space. Well, until the Republic gets blown up. But, like,
Yeah,
normally, if you're like a government body and you're funding, say, a guerrilla group, the guerrilla group is not where you are. You're like, you're playing at world politics in another country where you're funding a resistance.
yeah.
And like, it's not clear, like, is half the galaxy owned by the First Order? And is the Republic, is that why the Republic isn't openly like
This is a great
going head
question.
to head, and therefore they're funding guerrilla people within First Order space? Like, it's also not clear how much resource, like,
It's
how.
not clear,
No,
yeah, and I don't know. I From this movie alone, I don't have that answer.
no. What drives me bananas is I am not opposed to, after the overturning of the Empire, Leia takes some role in the New Republic and it still goes tits up and Leia watches yet another slide into fascism. I actually
Yeah,
think that's kind of a cool storyline. What drives me nuts is that we never hear from Leia about this. We get barely any insight from her as to what the hell happened, how she
yeah.
feels about it. She's just running some rebellion somewhere, like no time has passed whatsoever. And I actually think her input on, like, I don't know, the way the New Republic fell or the way the New Republic was quietly funding this resistance force that she had to go and start by herself because no one else was going to stand up. Like, even that would have been an interesting point of view to have her express at some point.
Yeah, because like you could have had a parallel to Attack of the Clones where they needed to vote on military power. Nothing was happening. You had to create your own military. That's something that
Yeah.
they could have done here.
I
Nothing
would
was touched upon.
exactly. I could see like the New Republic full on Neville Chamberlaining it and being like, we have just come out of a big disaster. There's, yes, there are
Yeah,
some neo Nazis, but like we're gonna make peace. We're gonna let them do their thing. With like, some people might die, but that's a better thing than going back into galactic warfare. And Leia was like, no, I'm not having that. But like, any one of the, it's this as a premise, there's infinite places you could go and all of them are interesting and we got none of them.
none, and none of it was explicitly explained. I think perhaps some of it is explained back in new things that have come out, like new shows or new books or comics. But from just like a standpoint on this film,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna argue and say for the rest of the trilogy, you don't receive any answers, and you don't get a backstory on that's fulfilling to how this could have happened and how. And like I think one thing that bothered me when I was watching this was, the First Order is doing their nefarious evil things. And you do have the resistance pilots who coming in on their TIE fighters and try to stop these big forces of power. But the Republic does still exist. Do they not have any law enforcement anywhere? Like you never see them. The only time you see someone who's from a Republic is when they're going to blow up those planets, or
Yeah.
that's it. And also, like, that's just a little other gripe of mine is that, blowing up a democratic institution does not end the democracy.
It doesn't.
Because
And
there's a long line of people who would come and step in and take over.
yeah, and I guess the only kind of consequence of that is presumably the number of people they're able to gather in the Rise of Skywalker, because they amass a huge civilian fleet. So I assume maybe that's some reaction to the destruction of. But like, if you think about, like, let's say hypothetically someone bombs the UN, there'd be a reaction.
Yeah, like, there would be.
I mean, all the countries in the UN would still exist, but also like there would be political consequences to that. And
yeah.
At a certain point, this does become nitpicking, but the fact that it's just left so untouched in the film, like, I assume there are many criticisms that the prequels are too political, and I assume perhaps there was a desire to move away from that because it was not well received, which I can understand. I don't agree, but I can understand. But you can't be no political. Like, it just doesn't work.
No, you can't put in something political and then not talk about it, because like they definitely have the visual of a fascist regime. They have Hux talk to. Well, he gives that speech, which I thought he was giving to a bunch of people. He was giving it to his own his own little army. Of stormtroopers, which I thought was a choice. But then you don't do anything else with that imagery. Like, it should serve some sort of explanation or purpose, and but I think the politics is just there and it's not the focus of the story. So then you have to think, what is the focus of the story? Which I guess is my next question. What was the theme and the focus of this movie?
Rey, I guess, going on
it's about a reawakening.
Yeah.
The Force waking up.
Yep. Like, we're gonna have to do this all over again, aren't we?
Yeah. This is tied in with things that I don't work, because we're still in that section. I don't think it works because I struggle to find a definitive theme of this film and the story that it's trying to tell. I think there's a lot of ambitions that are being shown. Like, Rey wants to leave that planet. She wants to reunite with her family. She wants to help the Resistance because she knows that they're good people. She wants to help find Luke Skywalker because the Jedi are good and they exist. And so she wants to do good, but also, like, because it's so close to A New Hope, I feel like, I don't know. I have misgivings on how the story was kind of told.
I think if we were still making this right after The Force Awakens came out and we didn't know what was going to happen in the next two films.
Yeah.
Like, Rey gets a pretty good arc, I think, in this film.
Yeah.
From her, like, I like the fact that she's a little bit of, like, I like the fact that she thinks that she's really important. Like, she has big dreams about, and I almost like maybe she idolizes Luke a little bit, or she idolizes his story, and she feels like she's like inhabiting that story a little bit, like that she's someone special as well. And she comes into her powers, and she leaves Jakku and winds up making an active choice not to go back, and moving past that and going to find Luke and finally meeting him. I think that's a decent arc. I think Finn gets a decent arc of, like, the beginnings of becoming a person and making connections with Rey and his willingness to go back for her. But of course, all of these wind up going nowhere.
No, Finn has a fascinating story for me. When, like, one day he, like, is following orders, and then, like, something happens and something awakens in him, and, like, what was that? Like, he, like, totally broke through his conditioning.
Yeah.
It would have been great if, like, we could find out more of that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool scene too, because he has that fellow stormtrooper that, like, wipes his blood on his helmet, and that seems to snap him out of it, and he's just like, I don't want to do this, actually, and then he just gets the hell out of there once he has the opportunity.
I miss the days when we could pretend that these films were going to be about Finn being Force sensitive.
He is, like, I loved him when I first saw this movie. Like, he was so charismatic, and he was one of the best parts about the whole thing.
Yeah.
He was funny. He was insightful. He, like, had instant loyalty to, Rey and Han.
So much chemistry with everybody.
Yeah, so much chemistry. He even had that whole little deal, like, he was, that he was wrestling with. He was kind of lying to her at first.
Yeah.
And he resolved it in a good way, He ended up telling her. Like, I mean, and Han was like, trust me, women always know.
Yeah.
It's like, listen to Han. He knows what he's talking about. It was very charming, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a travesty. What happened there?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of my biggest bugbears with the sequels is the untapped promise of Finn as a character.
Yeah, because you see so much potential there. He has, I mean, his dialogue that he had with Han was hysterical. Like when they're trying to rescue Rey, and he's like, "We'll just use the Force." And Han goes, "That's not how the Force works."
No, that was amazing. That's a great memeable moment too. It's great.
Yeah. It's also like the way that at the end he chooses to like literally throw himself at Kylo Ren. Like you have also the moments of like these adorable like him forming connections, incredible chemistry, these great comedy moments, and then at the end he like throws himself at Kylo to save Rey. Like
he does. Yeah,
he has a great arc in this film.
He does, and it's why I was very excited to see more of him. Mm-hmm. We'll touch on that little disappointment in the next podcast episode.
Next time on the Kyber Collective.
Finn's untapped potential squandered.
10,000 tears for John Boyega.
I have to give a little nod to Rey as well, because Daisy Ridley gave her so many fun qualities. Like she has these such a scrappiness to her, and she's kind of feral when she goes after something. Like when she hears BB-8 say that jacket belonged to Poe, my best friend, and she just charges at Finn with this growl on her face. It's hysterical. She like smacked him with her staff. She was willing to go for. She went for him for a droid. I mean, and she makes these cute little faces when she's trying to shoot with that little blaster thing. Like she's all these like really great character traits that she got, and such a unique backstory of like she's waiting for her family and she has to go back, and she's counting down on this little board of how many days left or how many days she's been there. Which, by the way, that kind of bothers me because everyone always does single lines. And I'm like, listen, you have to cross it out when it's 5 so you can keep track of it.
Yeah.
Anytime people don't do that, I'm like, I lose my mind a bit. But she was great. I think Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Poe was so charismatic. I was actually astonishing to see that much like life and joy in his eyes when he was playing this character, because I just remember by the end that was gone. But he did such a cool job. He was able to withhold revealing anything about Luke Skywalker's, where he is, the plans, any of it, the map to Skywalker, until Kylo forces it out of him. Like, I think these are some really incredible actors. They had such good chemistry. Like, I think the casting, that's why I said, like, the casting was so good, and they brought such charm to these roles.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think were good, and things that didn't really work. And what did you guys think of the treatment of the OG characters like Han, Leia, and Luke? I mean, Luke is hard to even talk about in this movie because he shows up at the end, and the premise is that he's gone.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on their portrayal, because I have some thoughts.
I think that Han was how Harrison Ford wanted him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that he finally got what he wanted, and that Han died.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine if that's what you wanted. I didn't at the time. I hated it.
Yeah.
Just because it's just such a horrible way to go.
Yeah.
For such a cool character.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really like the thought of Han Solo being a deadbeat dad, kind of.
Yeah.
Really hated that. But on the other hand, I wasn't surprised that him and Leia had marital issues. it wasn't a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, you could tell there was still a lot of love there. I thought that was, I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't like unrealistic,
Yeah.
I don't think they could have known that Carrie was going to pass away after The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So, however, it's a huge travesty, lost missed opportunity that the three of them were never able to get back together again one more time. And it wouldn't have been able to happen anyway because, Han died, but it was just sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Han is quite depressing in this film because, like, the kind of rogue smuggler thing, it takes on a very different kind of tone when, like, he is like a divorced older man who's still friends with a carpet, and
Right.
it just it doesn't read the same. Like, I feel like it could have been maybe like tinkered with to suit the age that Harrison Ford is now, because to me it just, when he's like dodging debts and like he's got these gangs after him, and it's just a bit sad. It's like, mate, you're still doing this, you haven't earned enough to retire. Like, you were
Yeah.
married to
Right.
like one, like the Princess of Alderaan and one of the biggest political figures, and you've decided to just go back to smuggling. Like, you couldn't find something else to do.
Right.
Like,
He should be
Yeah.
like in his apartment in
yeah,
Shangri-La, just like watching Hollows or something, you know?
Yeah.
yeah. The fact that like nothing seemed to have changed for him just read as really quite sad to me.
Yeah.
And then Leia is also quite sad. I mean, I find their reunion very poignant, so like positive sad. But I find the fact that
Mm.
Leia's like still living in bunkers and like doesn't express any opinions about what's going on, really, aside from
Yeah.
like leading the rebellion and missing Luke. I just found it like sad. I Leia's been an underutilized character. I know George Lucas wanted to focus on her for this bit of the trilogy, but like, I'd have given anything for her to have more input on the state of the galaxy, more emphasis on her role as a past politician, a present military commander, and just something to make her like, she kind of reads a bit like Mon Mothma in the film for me. Like, she's the person in
Yeah.
charge, but
Yeah.
like, how much do you know about Mon Mothma without digging into extra source material?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's
She's not really in it
Leia.
very much.
No, and like, Leia deserves more. Leia should have given us more. And I mean, we'll get to what she brings to the Last Jedi when we get there.
Yeah.
But I found it very frustrating in this film. I mean, on rewatch, the first time I was like, "Is that Leia?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it very much could be one of her doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wasn't even wearing the hairstyle to help me out.
Right. That's such a dumb joke, by the way.
Yeah.
You changed your hair. Yeah, I changed my hair. Come on.
It's frustrating, and I'm in the same camp as you guys because I feel like they are another squandered opportunity in the sequels, and in this movie specifically, I didn't love that Han had reverted back out of avoidance. I didn't like that Luke was also in avoidance. I mean, I guess that is sort of a theme in this movie about the OG characters, except Leia, because Leia was trying to get things done. Again, I'm not even going to get into how her being the general of the resistance is so confusing politically, but I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunity in trying to get these characters reunited. And like you said, we couldn't predict. No one could imagine that Carrie Fisher was going to pass away. But I'm gonna say it. I don't think they should have given in and killed Han. I don't think that was a good decision.
Yeah, see, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I know Lawrence Kasdan like helped out with the writing and everything, but like, I don't necessarily think that was a good thing, because when George and him worked together, George was able to be like, "Okay, so you don't want Vader redeemed? That's good for you, but I'm not gonna do it." Or, "Oh, okay, you don't want Return of the Jedi to have like happy ending with Hope? Well, I don't agree with you. He did his
Yeah,
own thing."
yeah,
George was able to take everybody's ideas into consideration, but at the end of the day, he did what he wanted to do. And
yeah.
it doesn't sound like J.J. Abrams knew what he wanted. Um,
No, no.
it's especially like if he's in a writer's room of people who everybody had to be right at the end of the day. Like, that's ridiculous. So yeah, I don't. Harrison Ford's great and all, but Harrison Ford is an actor, and yeah, it's his character, but it doesn't mean he had to like write the end. I guess I don't
Yeah.
know.
I guess what you get then if you kill off his character is that you get a lens into Kylo Ren, who
Yes.
in his actions, from my perspective, when I saw this movie, without having seen any other movies, I was like, okay, this has solidified him as a really bad guy, like a very bad guy who is you cannot get past this, because it's not just that he is going through a time; it's that he is specifically pushing to go to to the dark side and specifically trying to get there when his entire being is trying to not. You know, this is the narrative they presented with us. Do I agree with it? No, but I this is what we're being told, that he is constantly feeling the pull to the light. So because he needs to be like hardcore, he has to kill his dad to get into the club, and
Yeah.
that's what they showed. That's one thing, if that's what they wanted to show us, that he's just that wicked and just that wretched that he could kill his father, then so be it. Stick with that. Except that's not what ends up happening later. So
Yeah, for me, there's really not much coming back from that.
no.
No.
So let's talk about our antagonist in this movie series,
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren. We haven't really talked about him. We talked about him a little bit here. What do you guys think of him as our primary villain? And do you think it was done well? Do you think it had some potential?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, he's a great villain, and I think that it all comes down to Adam Driver. I think he's the one that made the character good. I don't think it really had much to do with the writing. I think it had to do with Adam.
Yeah.
He took what they gave him and really crafted a one of the more developed characters in this sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think he gets the most development, but unfortunately, some of it's mutually contradictory. So it's like he develops forwards and backwards quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, my read on it, he scares the shit out of me. Like, Kylo Ren
Yeah.
absolutely terrifies me. I physically recoil in fear when he's on screen, because he just kind
It's
of
got serious school shooter vibes.
he
you know?
does, absolutely. He like exudes violence in a way that I actually find a little bit physically uncomfortable, but it's very good for a villain.
Yeah.
I liked him in The Force Awakens quite a lot actually when I first was watching it, and I think what I like about him is that he is a very good antagonist who is not Vader, and it's one of the things in the film that is like not pulling too heavily from the original trilogy. Like, he's very much not a Vader figure. He's not as in control. He's certainly not self-assured. He's a little bit, I mean, the way that he lashes out and he's really bratty. I mean, I know Vader kills people because he's pissed off with them, but like, there's a kind of unrestrained bratty violence to Kylo Ren that's very frightening in that film.
Yeah. It's someone who has petulance but also uses the Force.
Yeah, like when he's destroying that panel and like everyone just has to kind of stand there and awkwardly watch it. Like, I actually find that quite terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good choice for a villain. I think that it worked really well. I think that I don't mind him. I mean, when I watched it for the first time, I didn't mind him killing Han because I thought this is a nice, like, I saw the dad reveal coming, and then when the culmination of it was that he chooses to kill his father in that moment to solidify him as a villain. I thought that worked really well.
Yeah.
But then we do the flip-flop in the subsequent movies where like they take some bits of that character and they run with it and they pull back on some others, and then the whiplash between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker is very inconsistent, and you wind up with like, they spent a lot of time and energy on this character, and they did a lot of good things with this character, but at the end what I've kind of got is a little bit of a hot mess.
He's a little all over the place, and like, you know, he definitely has that creepy factor. Like when he's interrogating Rey, he says, "You know, I can take whatever I want." Like, it's so brazen and so just kind of disturbing, very violating, and you know, Adam Driver does play that up very well. But you get a distinction of like, this is someone who's a little too big for their boots, and he's trying to prove himself to be something when he might just not really be there yet.
Yeah, there are some nice touches. The way that the interplay between him and Hux in The Force Awakens, and the way that there's a little bit of humiliation from Snoke, and like the way they're constantly trying to outdo each other with him, and then the Vader worship angle, I think really, really work. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's carried through to The Last Jedi very well. I think he's like a different but also good antagonist in The Last Jedi, but he's almost like a different person.
Yeah.
Give Adam Driver the Oscar for playing 3 separate people with the same name in these films.
He did do it. He read the script. He's like, okay, this is the direction that we're going in now.
Okay.
Yeah, his reveal as being Anakin's grandson was not too surprising to me. Finding Anakin's ratty mask was a little surprising to me because it should be like dust
Oh, it's
on.
way less weird than the lightsaber.
Yeah, the lights. Oh my god, I didn't even touch on that. The lightsaber
Yeah.
is pretty weird.
I can
Yeah.
believe that somebody fished that out of the funeral pyre, but I can't believe that Luke's lightsaber was still hanging around.
Yeah, that's a little much, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's like the Youngling Slayer 9000, but it's not that good.
Hey, don't slander the Youngling Slayer 9000. I have one behind me. So when I was rewatching this, that's like that scene where he is talking to Ray and is like, "Oh, don't be afraid of whatever you're sensing," because he was like mind probing her. He's like, "I feel it too," and
Hmm.
is that possibly a touch on the Force dyad thing? Was that something that they came up with this early on? I don't think they
No.
did, but I
No.
think I think it was definitely used by Ryan Johnson later. But I thought that was a little interesting moment. It's a common theme in this movie. I think of like sprinkling things in here and hoping someone else figures it out later.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about kind of rewatching and thinking about The Last Jedi in preparation for us doing recordings on the sequels is how well Ryan Johnson was picking up on things that were dropped down in
Mm-hmm.
The Force Awakens, which I will obviously get into, but there is some kind of connection between them. And I remember at the time, like that's when Reylo did start. Like there were definitely
Mm,
people who came
yeah,
out of that film and were the original Reylos. And like there is something there, but I think it's more just a connection of like two of the only Force users in the galaxy, and he's
yeah,
surprised
yeah,
that she's as powerful as she is for an untrained Force user or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, he realizes that she has the Force,
Yeah, and they
and
have
she's afraid of it.
yeah.
She keeps running away from it. And honestly, like it's one of the things that I get annoyed with in movies when like Ray, the lightsaber called to her, and she, instead of like just picking it up and getting with the picture, she just like denies it and runs away. And I just want to be like, come on.
She chose refusal of the call.
Yeah, refusal of the call is on the hero's journey.
I'm so tired of it. Like I'm just, for once, can we know you're going to like,
Yeah. Cut out the middleman, accept the call.
right, exactly. Please, just once, accept. But yeah, she was afraid of the Force. She was a denier, a denying denier. I don't know what like. I don't know if he thought that she could join him, or I guess
Mm,
maybe that's what he wanted.
yeah.
Speaking of Rey with the Force, though, one of the everlasting and continuing criticisms of Rey is that she is too good with the Force and too soon. Do you think that's
Uh,
realistic or unfathomable?
I have a problem with this. In that I think it makes complete sense based on the way the Force is described in The Last Jedi and the dark side rises and light to meet it, which would imply that Rey would be particularly strong as one of the only light side users out there.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I think the way that the Force is dealt with in The Last Jedi is contrary to the way the Force is shown in the rest of Star
The
Wars
Star Wars universe, yeah.
and makes no sense.
Right.
So I'm kind of two minds. But I don't have a problem with it, to be honest, because we see Luke learn very quickly. We see, you kind of need your protagonist to learn quickly. I'm not going to cry about there being no Dagobah training montage when, like, I think there are much bigger fish to fry with this movie than
Yeah, like
yeah.
Yeah.
Luke came back in Return of the Jedi, like basically, you know,
In his
Jedi
final
Master.
form,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
And it, Obi-Wan's still a Padawan at 25, so like Luke learned
Poor guy!
really fast.
Their
Yeah.
rules and restrictions were much
Yeah.
much stronger back then.
Yeah.
and they didn't explain it very well in the movie, but they didn't explain it very well ever in the sequels. But when Kylo was opening himself up like that, when she was in the chair, it allowed her to just invade his mind, and she basically downloaded his training.
Is that what they said happened?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that in
she
canon? Where?
took yeah, it's in the book. She took his training into her. Like
Yeah.
he's
Man, can I do that? Can I just put my mind into like a French speaking person and download like the ability to fluently
that's
speak the
basically what she
language?
did. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the kind of thing that needs to be in the movie. But
Yeah. It needs to be
It
explained.
needs
it
to be
needs to be
explained.
explained. The one place where I give ground to this complaint about Ray, because I think a lot of it is driven by complaints about a female lead, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
I know that there are people who don't have a problem with it who also have complaints. So not to tar everyone with the same brush, but a lot of the ones that I hear seem to stem from that. I am bothered by the way she picks up abilities, or things just kind of happen because the plot needs it to happen. But I think that that's less of a problem in this film than it is in, like, for example, The Rise of Skywalker and the introduction of force healing, because that's very clearly a, like, we need this power. It's just going to turn up now so that we have this. And I think she does suffer a lot from Deus Ex Machina writing, basically, where they're like, we need someone to do this, so Rey's just going to use the Force.
Yeah, because I'm with you guys completely. The one place where I struggled suspending my disbelief way back when this movie came out in theaters was when she is, tied up to that chair and she gets that stormtrooper. She does that Jedi mind trick to him, to loosen her restraints and let her go, and then drop his blaster, drop his weapon. Which, great scene to watch, actually, and really funny when he's like, and I'm dropping my weapon. It's really funny. But having her do that, I mean, it just seems unrealistic to me. I don't think she would have known how to do that. I don't think she knew about that ability. I mean, maybe it was like some great myths on Jakku. Oh, don't let the Jedi come near you. They'll Jedi mind trick you. Like, I could see that actually happening, but to be able to execute it, it's supposed to be really hard.
Well, she did just download all of Kylo's training, as we've just learned, so I assume that's where she picked it up.
And that's where my frustration goes, because it's not clear in the film. So it's ridiculous. I don't like that explanation, because you're explaining it away later. And I see both points here. Yeah. I'm still mad about it.
I'm going to correct myself, because I've just been sent a text message from my partner upstairs who says that I pronounced Deus Ex Machina wrong. So there you go.
She just called you out from a different room.
Super did. Anyway, I stand corrected. I apologize. I apologize both to the Latin language and to all of our listeners.
It's okay. I think our 2.5 listeners will be forgiving of it. Yeah, I think we've covered I mean, it's interesting. I wondered how much I would feel like I felt like I needed more content when I was creating my outline. But we've gotten a whole lot. So I think we might need to just move on to the next. Yeah. Any final thoughts about The Force Awakens before I move us straight into my dastardly lightning round?
No, I think all my thinks have been thunk.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, lightning round. So, question number 1. Wrong answers only.
Oh, okay.
How do you think Luke's lost lightsaber was found? And I know Canon might have touched on it later, but from here, I just want your most absurd answer on how that lightsaber was recovered. Sig, go.
There is oh god. Okay, Bespin. Bespin runs a secret underground biomedical business and was very excited to learn about a chopped off hand that had fallen into their planet. So they sent out a retrieval service and used Luke's hand for severe medical experimentation, gave it leprosy and warts. But we're not interested in the lightsaber. And Maz Kanata used to work as an intern for this company while they were curing space leprosy and pocketed the lightsaber. The end.
Fabulous. Love it.
Don't applaud that. It was bad.
That's the point. That is the point, my friend. Annie?
Like a Purgle picked it up.
I actually like that so much better.
And then, because they can do their light speed thing or whatever, hyperspace,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody found it in another universe and it ended up on the black market. And since Maz Kanata, is basically knows everything somehow. She's like
Somehow.
in everything. Yep, she won it in like a poker game. I'm sorry, not poker, sabak, sabak.
Sabak. That's
Oh,
fabulous. Mine is that Luke Skywalker's severed hand spontaneously regenerates into a full-grown Luke Skywalker.
Oh god, a Luke clone.
Yeah,
yeah.
Luke clone. There's a Luke clone going on around there, and he hands that Youngling Slayer 9000 to Maz for safekeeping until he makes his own hero's journey, and we never hear from him, so he could be out there. That's my
Riding the
theory.
Purgles.
Riding the Purgles. Lightning round number 2. Give me the Rey, Poe, and Finn adventure you'd have liked to see in this movie.
Okay. Ray and Poe are extremely disturbed to learn that all of the stormtroopers they've been shooting are child soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So they start an NGO and begin learning about how to deprogram people. And Finn is their first case, and he goes around all the schools in the Republic and is like, don't join the stormtroopers. Don't let yourself get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then the three of them together take down the First Order through deprogramming, and I don't know if I would actually watch this. I'm so sorry. I tried, man. These are hard.
I know. I didn't go easy on you, but it's something that, it's cool if you want to see that. That's fine.
I want to see Finn's past addressed. I don't think I want to see it addressed in the form of an NGO and some weird therapy, but
Yeah.
I want to see Finn go to Octu with Rey,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Poe could be their pilot, so Poe can hang out on Octu while everybody hangs out. They should have had some more time together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of Finn being force sensitive. I know he is, but just actually acknowledged that he's force sensitive and learns about the force. Maybe he doesn't choose to become a Jedi, but he learns more about it and how to become attuned to it. And then Poe, his family knew Luke, right? Like his mom and dad. Yeah, they could all just have like adventures together on Octu.
That's a good one. Mine is not well thought through, and it's just a very basic hope that I wish I had, which is I just want them to be like just hanging out as friends. I feel like we never really got to see them all together in a positive environment where they're just nice. And because in the Last Jedi they kind of got separated, and then in the Rise of Skywalker they were always mad, and I just want them to just have a nice time together. And like, I don't know, maybe Poe can show Rey and Finn around. These are some really cool spots that we sometimes drink some Mugen spiced tea, and
yeah, he would be a really good tour guide.
Yeah, he'd be like, let me fly you out on my TIE fighter, not repurposed from the First Order, and just criticizing about how bad their flight piloting system is, and show them some cool spots in the galaxy. Like, I think that would be really fun, just friend bonding.
Yeah, it's cool because neither Rey or Finn has really gotten around that much at that point in their lives. So
yeah, and I think it would be really, really sweet if they just got to hang out and just have some drinks. I require very little in my life to be happy. That's what I would like to see from them.
Yeah, there's some great fan fiction around of that,
Yeah.
And the Poe comic is good. It goes into their friendship. I know that this is just about the movies, but
yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah. All right, final question. Poe Dameron or Han Solo? Who's the pilot you would willingly fly with?
Poe, definitely Poe. He's an amazing pilot. He's an amazing pilot. Han was great, but like Han, like in Solo Han, yeah, the whole like how many ever parsecs, that was great. But Poe was doing the hyperspace jumping.
Yeah, light speed.
I mean, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, light speed. Yeah, he's pretty impressive.
I'm gonna go Poe, unless it's Last Jedi Poe, in which case I'm going Han.
You can select which era.
Force Awakens Poe, definitely.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have the same answer, and I'm not going to give Han Solo a pity like team. I want to go with Poe. I think he would be really fun to fly with.
Yeah, I think Han's just lucky. Honestly, like I maintain that Han is force sensitive in the way like Domino is enhanced in the
Yeah.
Marvel comics. Like she's like supernaturally lucky. I think Han is supernaturally lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think we have successfully finished our The Force Awakens review and discussion.
Yay!
We got through it, our first sequel movie. Thanks for tuning into the Kyber Collective. If you like what you heard, please give us a like, and if you got something to say to us, drop us a comment below. Both of these things help make us easier to find for other fans and are the best way you can support our work. If you'd like to keep up to date with our episodes, you can subscribe, and you can always follow us on Twitter and talk to us at Kyber Collective. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and until then, remember, the crystal is the heart of the blade, the heart is the crystal of the Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi. You are one.